Radio.
Yes, sir. Good morning. This is Lagoon Radio, and you're welcome to the program. Know Your Right. It's our legal program where we educate you on your rights as a citizen of Nigeria. I am Anosike Jimezie, and today, Friday, the 22nd day of October 2021. Remember, you can download the app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. Of course, on Facebook, it's Lagoon Radio Nigeria, and we are live. Yes, we are transmitting live. And on Instagram, Lagoonradio.Ng. You can listen to us directly via the link www.LagoonRadio.Ng. And this morning, we'll be looking at data protection and rights of electricity consumers. Yes, data protection and rights of electricity consumers. And we have in the studio Barrister Michael Ejiofor. Barrister, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, he's an associate of AO2 Law. And together we'll be looking at this. He will be educating us on our rights as a citizen when it comes to electricity consumption. Yes, now let's start this way. Looking at Nigeria as it is, what are the rights afforded to data subjects?
Okay, thank you for that question. First of all, in order to get a holistic view of that your question, I would like to give some background as to what data protection is. And data protection can be defined or is known as a set of strategies and processes used in securing the privacy, availability, and integrity of data. Now, when you go down to data protection rights, it can also be defined to mean rights afforded to data subjects for the purpose of safeguarding such data and information. Now, these rights have been enshrined in the 1999 Constitution as amended, and it has also been enshrined in the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. Now, going to the nitty-gritty of the question you asked me, rights of data subject. In my opinion, when you're talking about rights of data subjects, it revolves around consent. So in my opinion, I would say consent is like the bedrock of data protection rights. For you to process data of any data subject or personal data of any data subject, you must ensure that you get the consent of these data subjects. So as a data controller, if you're going to process the personal data or information of data subjects, you must ensure that you obtain consent from these data subjects, and this consent must be freely given. It must not be unambiguous. It must not be ambiguous. Pardon me, and it must be freely given by these data subjects. So when we talk about consent, I would also want to let you know that the right consent is not absolute in itself. So despite the fact that a data subject has given its consent, it also has the right to, say, rectify that consent or, rectify that piece of information given. So what that simply means is that, for example, I have given you my name and some other sets of data, and for some reason, my name has changed. I have the right to come back to you to say, please update my records and add add my middle name, for instance, Ikechukwu. Now, we also have the right to be forgotten. Now, the right to be forgotten simply means that you can reach out to the data controller and say to him that, you know what, I don't want my data on your platform anymore. Take it off, delete it, erase it. You have that right. So data subjects that are currently listening on this program should be aware that they have that right. If you have put up your information on any platform or any website, you have the authority, you have the power to reach out to any data controller or the owner of the website to say, you know what, please take down my data. I don't want it on your website anymore. Now, you also have the right to restrict processing. Now, for some reason, if you have given consent and you are saying that this consent I have given is for a certain purpose, you have a right to restrict that consent given, to say, you know what, this consent I've given is only for research and nothing more. I don't want my data to be transferred to a third party going forward. And Also, you have a right to object if you feel that your data is not being processed as it ought to be. You have a right to object. You have a right to inform the data controller and let them know that, you know what, this data I have given you is not being processed as it ought to be. And you also have a right to complain. So if you feel that for some reason a data controller has breached your privacy rights, you have a right to reach out to NITDA to lay your complaint.
Okay, now looking at the case study, what is the right of an electricity consumer?
Okay, thank you for that question. Now, rights of electricity consumers, for me, I would say that it's just you have a right to reach out to your electricity provider. In this case, in Lagos, for instance, it could be the Ikeja Electricity Company, or it could also be the Eco Distribution Company. So you have a right to reach out to these two people, depending on where your building is located, or depending on where you receive electricity. For example, for people that live within the environs of Ikeja, for instance, they have a right to reach out to the Ikeja Electric to say to them, look, for some reason my bill is excessive. I need you to look into this. You have a right to say, look, the electricity you're giving me is not suitable. It's destroying my equipment. You have a right to reach out to these people. You have a right to reach out to Eco Disco. So these are rights that have been afforded. These are rights that are protected by law, you know.
Okay, now, these rights, are they obtainable in Nigeria, considering the state of the nation?
Yes, I would say that these rights are obtainable in Nigeria. So if you want to have access to these rights, all you need to do is, pick up your pen and paper and write to them, or better still, you can visit their offices and make your complaint, or you can reach them via email. They have their email address published on their website, and it's even a statutory provision that they ought to create a specific email address for customer complaints. So these rights are obtainable. Sometimes most people are not aware of this right. Personally, I have pursued this right and have gotten relief, from the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. So these rights are obtainable, and there are measures in place to ensure that if Ikeja Electric, for instance, or Eco Disco are not forthcoming, you have other measures in place to ensure that they do what they ought to do, or what they're supposed to have. They do what they ought to do, pretty much.
Okay, since these rights are obtainable in Nigeria, and whose duty is it to enforce these rights?
Now, the duty of enforcement is that of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. So that's the regulatory agency and regulatory body. Yeah.
Okay, that's just the NEC.
Yes, NEC. NEC has oversight function in enforcing this right. So if you have a complaint, so there are different stratas and different procedures. So for example, I'm upset. I see my bill for the month and I feel that, it's excessive. I have a complaint. I'm aggrieved. I would naturally write to Ikeja Electric or Eco Disco, depending on where I reside. And I'll let them know that, for this month, I feel that you guys are not doing what you ought to do. The billing is excessive. And if within 3 weeks, if within 3 weeks the issue is not resolved or is not satisfactorily resolved, in my opinion, I also have that right to escalate it further to the complaint forum. So NEC has set up a complaint forum where if the electricity suppliers are not able to adequately address your concerns, you can walk up to the complaint forum and make your request and let them know that I have this issue, and unfortunately Ikeja Electric or Eco Disco have been unable to adequately address my concerns. But mind you, before you go to the complaint forum, you must ensure that you have given a 3-week notice period. You must ensure that you have initially approached the applicable disco and you have made your complaint, and you have waited for a period of at least 3 weeks to give them an opportunity to address your concerns. So after you have done that, and in your own opinion you feel that these issues are not resolved, then you can take it a notch further. And if and in some cases, you still feel that the complaint forum is not forthcoming, or they have not resolved all your issues, or you still have some grievance, you can escalate it to NEC itself, and after that, I would now say you can now proceed to court, but some people would initially just take the matter up and go to court. My advice as a legal practitioner, I would say that, why don't you, ensure that you address, or you go through all the internal workings and mechanisms provided by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission before you head down to court, because the issue might be resolved there, and you don't need to now, go to court and stay there. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, you're still listening to Know Your Right, our legal program on Lagoon Radio, and we are discussing data protection and rights of electricity consumers. Yes, you've been listening to Barrister Michael Ejiofor. We'll go on this short break. When we come back, we'll look at what are these rights the consumers should know all about. So I know all over Nigeria we have consumers of electricity. Stay tuned for you to know this right that you must definitely know about. We'll be right back after this break.
This is Lagoon Radio.
Yeah, welcome back. It's still Lagoon Radio, your number one online gospel radio in Nigeria and the official radio of the Anglican Diocese of Lagos. Yes, we are transmitting live from the Assistance Palace right here in Marina, Lagos. And if you want to listen to us, if you are listening to us and you don't have our app, all you have to do is to download it on Google Play Store and Apple Store. And you can also follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Lagoon Radio Nigeria. Of course, we are live. And on Instagram, Lagoonradio.Ng. And this morning, we are talking about data protection and rights of electricity consumers. Barrister Michael is still here. And we've talked about that. We've laid the foundation. Now, Barrister, looking at Nigeria, what are these rights? We keep on talking rights. We're saying rights. And a lot of Nigerians, we don't know our rights. And that's the major problem. What are these rights that the consumers should know?
Okay. So I will break them down to, I'll give you practical situations and scenarios. Now, take for instance, you wake up in the morning and you see, you're using a postpaid meter and you see that you have been excessively billed. You have a right to walk up to a Electric and complain, or Eco Disco, your electricity supply. You have a right to walk up to them and lay your complaint. Now, in the process of laying your complaint, once that complaint is open, I want to say it for everyone listening to this program. Your electricity supplier does not have the right to disconnect you or, disconnect you from power supply. Once you have made your complaint, you made your complaint before, made your complaint as soon as you notice that, oh, there's some issue or there's some issue with your billing. You made your complaint to the to Ikeja Electric or Eco-Disco. I keep using the two because these are the only two discos in Lagos. So once you have made your complaint and your complaint is still subsisting, it's not a complaint that has been closed, it's still subsisting. Your electricity supplier, they do not have the right to disconnect you. If they do, you have the absolute right to report them to the complaint forum. You have a right to write to the complaint forum. You have a right to write to NEC and let them know that, look, this is what my electricity supplier has done. And I'm sure that they would be relieved to that effect. If your meter is faulty, maybe you use a prepaid meter and for some reason it's faulty, it's not working as it ought to work, you have a right to what? To make your complaint to your electricity supplier. If also you feel that the current or the electricity, the power outage that is entering your residence is volatile, you understand, for some reason it's destroying your equipment and all, you have a right to complain to your electricity supplier to also inform them. You have these rights at your beck and call. Now, I have also seen that in recent times, I reside maybe Ikeja, but I've also observed that in recent times, Ikeja Electric has been sort of responsible. So if I have received messages from them to say, you know what, from this period to this period, we are experiencing power outage because of XYZ transformer is bad, our engineers are there fixing it. So that shows some sort of responsibility and accountability on their part. So these are rights amongst many others. If for some reason you also don't have a transformer or you don't have the required electricity apparatus to transmit or to give you this power you so desire, you have the right to walk up to your supplier and demand for these things. So that's why they are there. But I would also chip in, speaking from a legal perspective, if you're making your complaint, I would advise that your complaint is in writing. Put it in writing. So if in the event you want to escalate further, if you want to take your complaint to the complaint forum, you can always refer to that written document that you have, and you must also ensure that whatever written document you have has been acknowledged by your electricity supplier. In this case, in Lagos, you must ensure that either, depending on where you stay, if you stay within, say, Ikeja, Axis, and on the mainland, you must ensure that, some parts of the mainland, actually, you must ensure that maybe Ikeja Electric has acknowledged. So I'm aware that Ikeja Electric, they make use of SR number. So if they receive a complaint from you, what would they do? They will give you an SR number. So that SR number is used to track your complaints, for Eco-Disco. I think I've had a few dealings with them. I think they would also acknowledge same. They will also acknowledge your letter. So please ensure that you put your complaints in writing and also ensure that you have that your complaint acknowledged. You can also you can also send them emails. I've had calls to go have a few back and forth with Ikeja Electric, and yes, I can say that they responded to my email. Yes, although the issue was resolved at the complaint forum, but they did respond to my email. I was given an SR number via the email platform, and it was that SR number I used to challenge them at the Ikeja complaint forum.
Okay, that will bring us to the first question in the program. Someone said, please, Barrister, you are speaking from the Lagos perspective, but as I'm speaking as a Nigerian now. I stay in the Lakwe area, and for over 2 years, I've paid for postpaid meter, and nothing has come forth. And I've complained, nothing. And the bill charges are SS.
Now, for that, thank you for your question, and I'm sorry that you're going through this at the moment. Now, for your concern, I would advise that this is what you can do. You can write a letter to, or if you have already complained to Ikeja Electric and you have that complaint letter and you have an SR number, I'll just say, you know what, go straight ahead to the Ikeja complaint forum. If it's Ikeja Electric that is servicing you, or the Eco Disco complaint forum if it's Eco Electricity Distribution Company that is servicing you. If you have a complaint letter, you have an acknowledgement of same, go straight to them and make your complaint. It's not, when you go to the complaint forum, it's not too legalistic, so I've been there. So it's not the people that even chair these panels are not particularly lawyers. So you would see engineers, maybe you can have one lawyer there, but it's not particularly legalistic. So it's just you going there to state your story. But if you don't go, if you don't state your story, if you don't state your concerns, if you don't take it a notch further, you would see that it's easy. It might be just swept under the carpet, or you just see that you're just going through the same issue. Once you go to the complaint forum and you get your ruling, you follow up with your electricity supplier that, look, this is my issue, and you take it up from there. Now, I would say that you're supposed to get your prepaid meter. So as at now, you are you're on estimated billing. Now, if you're on estimated billing, you also have a right to challenge, to say that, and you also have a right to challenge that billing to say that, you know what, I'm on estimated billing. I need you to assess. I don't know what the facts are. I don't know how much you're being billed, But if you feel that it's excessive, you have a right to also to let them know that this bill is excessive and I want a review, a downward review of my bill, because so there are mechanisms in which NEC has put in place to ensure that the electricity supplier on the one hand gets value for the electricity is supplying, and the consumer of the electricity on the other hand is adequately protected, so that no party would cheat the other. So let's not forget that electricity too doesn't come cheap. If you look at the value chain, so if you are looking at the value chain, you're looking at generation companies who would buy gas in foreign currency and produce this electricity. They will ship it down to the transmission companies, who will eventually ship it down to the distribution companies. So this doesn't come cheap. The distribution companies end up buying electricity from the generation companies, and guess what? They have to pay for this electricity. So I even want to also say this: if you're listening to this program, I want to make a passionate appeal, because the sector, for the past, since the privatization, say as far back as when the law was enacted in 2005, the sector has been struggling quite a bit with liquidity. They've been struggling to pay their bills. The discos have been struggling to pay their bills at the with the Genco. So I want to make a passionate appeal. He who comes to equity must come with clean hands. So if you want to get value for your electricity, pay your bills. Don't tap light. Don't buy. Don't try and outsmart either party, because you are doing everybody. If you do that, you are doing a great disservice to the nation, because this sector needs to be vibrant. This sector needs to be liquid, for things to strive. A lot of things, maybe we don't know, but a lot of things are dependent on electricity. Ease of doing business. The World Bank has stated time and time again that, for you to thrive economically, one of the key indicators is that you must have access to electricity. So for that customer that has called, please, if you have made your complaint, go right ahead to the complaint forum. If you have not made a formal complaint, I would advise you make a formal complaint. Ensure that your letter is acknowledged. Take your letter, depending on who is servicing you, whether Ikeja Electric or Echo Disco. I know for Ikeja Electric, I think they have the complaint forum at Jobafela Way, near around that Alausa area. So you can take your complaints there. Take evidence of your payments for prepaid meter. You take your letter, your complaint letter. You take the complaint letter you've written, the acknowledged complaint letter you've written to Ikeja Electric, if it's Ikeja Electric servicing you, and you submit it, and you keep following up. You have to follow up with the complaint forum. You just have to. So you keep following up with them, and when the time is right, one of two things would happen. They would either send your complaint to Ikeja Electric, and if it's Ikeja Electric that's servicing you, they'll send your complaint to Ikeja Electric and let them know that, this customer has this grievance. What can you do to sort out this issue? And majority of the time, 90% of the time, I would say that they usually rise to the occasion and they try as much as possible to ensure that the issue is sorted. Now, the second option that might arise is the fact that you may also have a full blown out hearing. So you'll be invited, and the panel would, there will be a constituted panel, of about say about five, and they would hear you, and they would hear from Ikeja Electric, and they will give a ruling. So if that ruling goes in your favor, you can take that ruling to Ikeja Electric and have them enforce it. So these are the options available to you.
Okay, another question.
Yeah.
Yes, this one is your Michael. He said, thank you, Lagoon Radio, for this, and thank you, Barrister, for saying this. But I have a challenge. For over 8 months, we have a problem with our transformer. But the NEPA, they are insisting that we buy the transformer. I don't know if this is the right angle to ask this question. Are we, the consumers, the ones to provide transformer for ourselves, or the NEPA itself?
Well, you can look at it from 2 angles. Actually, as a private owner, you can choose to own your transformer. I'm sure you've seen houses that have their own private transformers. Okay. However, your electricity supplier is also supposed to ensure that you get electricity supply. Now, in ensuring that, you must ensure that all the apparatus you need, say for example your adequate wiring and your transformers in this particular instance, is provided to you. So yes, you have a right to that, and you can enforce same at the complaint form and let them know that our transformer has been down for about 8 months and we're not getting any feedback. So you go through the process all over again and try and see whether this issue can be sorted out. So yes, as an electricity consumer, your electricity supplier has the right to provide you, a transformer. But however, private people or private institutions, as the case may be, also opt to provide themselves with transformers, and ensure that that issue of transformer is just by the wayside and doesn't reoccur.
Okay. Now, looking at it this way again, now, how can these rights be protected?
Now, how can they be protected? Well, I would say that the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has like a lot of burden to discharge, and so far, I would say that, in my opinion, that they have been doing quite well. It's fair, I reckon that there are a lot of complaints. So every now and again, you see that before media, you see that they have over 10,000 complaints. So yes, the regulatory agency has a lot to do in this regard. Now, everybody is also a stakeholder. The electricity suppliers also have a burden to discharge. They have to ensure that complaints are adequately attended to, and also if you feel that after all said and done, you have gone through the process outlined, and you feel that your rights are still, far from being attended to, you have the opportunity to approach the courts and have them, enforce your rights. So I'm sure you have heard people say, "Oh, the judiciary is the last hope of the common man." So the judiciary is also that arm that helps to interpret and helps to provide some sort of clarity. But the chief regulator in this case is the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and so far I can tell you that there are models and there are mechanisms in place to ensure that rights of electricity consumers are adequately protected.
Okay, another question. This one is coming from Tosin. He said, please, Barrister, I was lost. What are the methods to complain, like you were mentioning?
Okay, I'll take it slowly. Now, if you have an issue with your electricity supplier, the first point of call is to complain to your electricity supplier. I would also advise that your complaint should be in a written format. You take your complaint to your electricity supplier. When I say electricity supplier, it depends on your locality. So if you are some parts of the mainland, most parts of the mainland are being covered by Ikeja Electric. So if your electricity supply is Ikeja Electric, you take it down there. Now, most parts on the island and a few parts on the mainland are being covered by Eco Disco. So depending on who your electricity supplier is, you take your complaints there. Written complaints, I would advise, and ensure that these complaints are adequately acknowledged. Ikeja Electric has a coping mechanism, so they will issue you what they call SR number. So that SR number will be used to track your complaints at every point in time. As at the last time I had dealings with a code disco, which was a while back, I think about 3-4 years ago, they would acknowledge your letter. They would stamp it and acknowledge your letter. So I don't know what the process is now for a code disco, whether they issue some number or they have some tracking system right now. So after you have done that, you have your two processes acknowledged, whether by SR number or by acknowledgement stamp. You would give them an opportunity, you engage them, let them know what the problem is, give them an opportunity to resolve your concerns or your grievances. Now, that opportunity given must be within a time frame of about, say, 3 weeks. After that has been done, you have given them an opportunity to resolve, and in your opinion, you feel that, well, this issue has not been resolved, or some of these issues have been resolved and some are left pending. You can choose to take it a notch further. You can write to the depending on where your locality is. If your locality if Ikeja Electric supplies you electricity, you can write to the Ikeja Complaint Forum. Yeah. Now, if it's Echo Disco, you can write to the Echo Complaint Forum, and you write to them. You let them know what your grievances are, what the problem is. But in writing to them, you must supply adequate, information. So anybody reading the letter at first glance would understand what you're saying. Sometimes this is when these are situations where it might be you might consider using the services of a legal practitioner, because we're trained in this art. So you can write to them, but in writing to them, I would always say that when you write a letter, ensure that at first glance, whoever is looking at it understands and knows what you're driving at. I've had cause to approach the Ikeja Complaint Forum, and when I went there, as soon as they looked at my letter, at first glance, the chair of the panel said, "I know what you want. I know where you're going to." Asked Ikeja Electric, "Do you guys have any response?" They said no, and he granted my request. It didn't take 7 minutes, 5 minutes, in fact. So after you have done that, your letter is expressive enough. You will attach the letter you have previously written to your electricity supplier, Echo Disco or Ikeja Electric, as the case may be. Once you have done that, you submit your complaint to the either the Ikeja Complaint Forum from NEC or the Echo Complaint Forum. After you have done that, you follow up with them to see, you keep following up with them to track your the progress of your complaint. And one of two things will happen. They will either forward your complaint to the electricity supplier in charge or electricity supplier involved in that particular dispute, or they will invite you for a full-blown-out hearing. At the full-blown-out hearing, you have an opportunity to state your case. You don't necessarily have to be a lawyer. You just have to compose yourself, state your case, state what you want, and they'll take it up from there. After which, if you feel, in your opinion, that some of your issues have not been addressed, or all your issues have not been addressed, you have the opportunity to write to NEC, that's the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. After you have done that, if you still feel that your issues have not been redressed, then I can advise that, you go to court. So I would advise strongly against just, going to court, because it may save you the time, it may save you the stress, and you don't want the lawyer on the other side raising a preliminary objection that, you have not fulfilled the requirements of the law, and you're supposed to have, pass through a particular process before going to court, so you don't want all that. So I would advise that, go through this process, first things first, inform your electricity supplier, that's one on the list, ensure that the letter is, your complaint is written and properly acknowledged. If no response or your complaint has not been addressed within 3 weeks, proceed. You can choose to proceed to the complaint forum depending on your locality. They have the Echo Complaint Forum or Ikeja Complaint Forum. I know last I remember, Ikeja Complaint Forum was somewhere it's at Jobafela Way. Last I remember, Echo Complaint Forum is at somewhere on I think somewhere in Marina, on the island though, somewhere I think in Marina somewhere, but not too far off from their office. So you can choose, if you Google NEC, you'd see the different complaint forums and their addresses, and you can take your issue there. Now, if for some reason your issue has not been attended to, or they have not given you the response you want, you can choose to make a further appeal to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and after which, if for some reason you still feel that your complaints have not been addressed, then you can go to the High Court and approach the courts.
So finally, they can be sued.
Yes, they can be sued.
As an entity.
Oh yes.
Okay. Now, let's look at the functions, like you mentioned. What are the real functions and interventions of the maybe eco electricity company? What are the functions and interventions of the customer complaint forum?
Okay. Now, the customer complaint forum, their intervention so far has been quite remarkable. So they stand as an independent middleman.
Okay.
Because quite frankly, well, there might be some issues in which your electricity supplier, by virtue of the fact that he's your electricity supplier, may not be too eager to settle. They might be, So that middleman is that person that is unbiased. Is that unbiased person that would, give an unbiased view that this is what should be, or this is what ought to be, And there are some issues that maybe the customer is feeling too strongly about and is just trying to outrightly outsmart the electricity consumers. So you have that middleman, that complaint forum, as that middleman that would say to the customer on one end, no, you're not entitled to this, or yes, you are entitled to this, and would say to the electricity suppliers, can say the same things to the electricity suppliers. So they are like I said, an independent body that addresses and attends to disputes between electricity consumers on one hand and electricity suppliers on the other hand.
Okay, now let's come to legal perspective. Okay. As a legal practitioner, what is your advice to these consumers?
My first advice is that I would advise that let's help ourselves. As a legal practitioner, I would advise that do what is right. Don't tap lights. Don't bypass. Pay your bills. Pay your bills. And that's because the sector, whether we like it or not, if you look at the intricacies of the sector, you'd see that there's still a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. Very recently, the government increased electricity tariff. Yeah, there were mixed feelings about it. Some people were of the opinion that, a country as blessed as Nigeria that has over 203 trillion cubic feet of gas. I mean, gas is one of the key components in producing electricity. We should not be paying that much, But I did my own independent analysis, and I noticed that most developed countries around the world, they pay a great deal for electricity. America, United Kingdom, they pay a lot. So if you have relatives abroad, you would see that they go on and on about you turning off the lights and being, very conscious. So pay your bills. That's the first advice I would give for consumers. Now, the second advice I would give to the electricity consumers, to the electricity suppliers, is that, we the consumers, we are your market. Treat us as such. If issues are left unattended to for too long, it makes a mockery of the whole process. So we as your supplier, we are your customers. Treat us as such. Ensure that disputes are resolved within a record time. Ensure that give a timeline that this is your dispute. If disputes are not too complicated, should be resolved within 24 hours. There are some policies I have seen with Ikeja Electric, which I am very, very, which I very, very much like. So they have a whistleblowing policy. So if you see that you are, if you know someone that is tapping electricity, you are free to come and complain, and there's some incentive for those that make complaints. Yeah, that's the way to go. So treat us like consumers. If there's going to be power outage in a particular locality for some reason or for some things that you have control over, please inform the electricity consumers. Explain to them. Sometimes most of these things, and what I've also realized is that sometimes it's just something as little as gap in communication. So communicate more, educate them. Not everybody understands the inner workings of the electricity sector. Not everybody understands that, these are the challenges you are having. So communicate more with your subject, with the people that you're supplying. Where are your customers? Where are your market? Without the electricity consumers on this, and you're not going to earn any revenue, because we here give you the revenue. We make the market liquid. So treat us well. So let there be that mutual respect. So that's from my own 2 cents. This is my advice. So one goes to the consumers, and the other goes to the supply. Also, NEC has been doing fairly well, but I would also say they can do better. They can ensure that disputes that are brought to the complaint forum are resolved in record time, because that saying that justice delayed is justice denied is deep with meaning. I mean, if someone comes to you and says, I want this issue resolved or I have this issue, and you are sluggish about resolving it, and the person just assumes that, you don't have the capacity to resolve, or because of your attitude towards resolving the issue, the person goes away, that person has been denied justice. So with disputes, with electricity disputes, ensure the regulatory body, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, should ensure that disputes brought to them are resolved in record time. So a lot of things might be done in that respect to ensure that there are people adequate. There are a lot of people taking in complaints, and the tribunal meets frequently and all that. So these are my advice to.
Okay, and that's the much we can take on the program because of our time. Thank you, Barrister, for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope to see you when next we call on you.
Please be my guest.
Okay, and that's the size of the package this morning on Know Your Right on Lagoon Radio. Make sure that you pay your bills, like the barrister said, because all these things, they work hand in hand. And do have a lovely weekend. From me, Anosi Kechimezi, and thanks to our producer, Olumakaiye, for pressing the right buttons. We'll meet again on Friday, 9:10 a.m.
This is Lagoon Radio.